In my mind, Asia continues to be one of the best places in the world to bank, whether it's the wealth hub of Singapore or some of the smaller, more emerging markets, which can offer surprising levels of safety. Today, I'm going to walk you through where in Asia you can open a bank account, even if you don't live there, even if you're a foreigner. And I'm going to tell you about the new cheapest place in frontier Asia to open a bank account. I'm calling it the Georgia of Asia. And I call it the Georgia of Asia because you may recall many, many years ago, I turned a lot of our audience onto the country of Georgia. And among other things, the fact that you can go and open a pretty high quality bank account with a very low opening deposit. Now, Asia, thanks to a large amount of wealth coming in from Chinese, as well as other wealthy Asians from all over the place, often has higher requirements. And so we're going to walk through, starting with Hong Kong and Singapore, the places where you can get an account, and then go down to some frontier countries, including the one I'm sitting here right now, where you can open a bank account for as little as $50. So in Asia, Hong Kong, some people like it, some people don't. I think if you want diversification, you want geopolitical diversification. Hong Kong on tax matters has been a little bit flexible with the European Union recently. On banking matters, they could be flexible as well. But for me, the idea that if you're a Westerner in the high-tax legacy brand West, yeah, China is the enemy because the high-tax legacy brand West is angry that they're losing their monopoly and everything, and that China's happy to not moralize other countries, and therefore other countries in the global South want to join with them. And so, you can sit in the United States or wherever you live and hear how bad China is. I'm not saying it's not without its flaws, but I think Hong Kong, for that reason, is worth considering. The challenges from a banking perspective, unless you live there, let's say through their new resident scheme, where you're going to invest about $4 million US into things like stocks, unless you're going to do that, unless you're going to get a residence permit through starting a company and actually creating jobs in the economy, it's going to be hard for you just to walk in off the street unless you happen to have a referral. We have a few bankers in Hong Kong in our network. We help our clients with that. Even then, it's not guaranteed. But if you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, you can learn about how we help our clients with everything from banking to second passports to tax optimization. Hong Kong is a great one, in my opinion. It's not for everybody, but I think that geopolitical point should be considered. The place that more people feel comfortable with is Singapore. This is the Western-friendly wealth hub of Asia. I believe it's a better place to bank than Switzerland or Liechtenstein or Andorra or any of those European banking capitals that are much more restrictive. Singapore has zippier service, lower fees. They don't demand discretionary accounts in most cases. And for someone like myself, they're more open to unique tax residences. And so if you go and live in some tax-friendly country that people haven't heard of, or just if you set up your tax residence, maybe you live there only a week or 2 weeks a year. But if you do that in a country that most people haven't heard of, the Europeans are going to look down their nose at you. The Singaporeans are probably going to be open in many cases, including if you have a more exotic nationality. So someone like myself who renounced U.S. citizenship, they're always happy to hear that, any bank around the world. But they're more open to different nationalities, where even when I lived in Europe for a couple of years, the Swiss banks weren't interested. Singapore, for me, is the most accessible, high-quality wealth haven. You can look at the big three banks. You can look at their stocks. You can look at their public results. I mean, DBS, one of the best performing banks in the world, and you can open an account there. We're talking low six figures in US dollars and up all the way into, $2 million for kind of the beginning of private banking. They have a private bank that starts at 5 million Singapore dollars with kind of full-scale private banking services that will open accounts for foreign companies, which is often difficult these days in Singapore. It'll even open accounts for trusts. And so as a wealth hub, Singapore is the best. You can get an entry level for that kind of low six-figure number. Now, if you don't have that much, then we're going to continue down the road. If you do have that much, even if you had the 5 million Singapore dollars and you go to the private bank, I still think you want tunnels around the world where you have, within Asia in this example, different countries you could move money around to. And here's the thing. I've always said, if you have bank accounts around emerging Asia, use Singapore as the wealth hub to where your money comes into Singapore, everyone respects Singapore. And then you move it to other countries that a Singapore bank would understand. You move it to Malaysia or Thailand, or even Cambodia. Singapore understands, whereas an American bank or a European bank might freak out. Why are you sending money to Cambodia? What's going on? A Singapore bank understands, and so it's a good hub, literally in the context of hub and spoke, for moving money to other possible tunnel accounts around Asia, where you may not need to keep that much money, but you have those accounts ready in case you ever wanted to live there, in case of some kind of political event, tax event, whatever happens. Just for asset protection, you can do that. Now, Thailand is theoretically possible. Now, it's easy enough to get a residence permit through the Thailand Premium Visa Program. I prefer the Thai Investor Visa. They've got a number of different ways you can move to Thailand without having to move there. You don't really just spend any time there. You just get the residence permit. Now, unfortunately, they've taken bank accounts away as a method to get that permit. However, we do have a connection. We can generally open bank accounts for folks remotely as non-residents with a $100,000 deposit. If you want to invest less, you can get some kind of Thai residence permit and generally open a bank account there. The days, I think, of knowing a bank customer and having them writing you a reference letter, I think that no longer really works. But again, you've got strong banks like Bangkok Bank, SCB. I have found it one of the more difficult places to open a bank. And so generally, I think they understand better if you have the local connection. However, through an introducer, you can open bank accounts there for a larger amount. Next on the list is Malaysia. We have had in the past at the Nomad Capitalist Live, our annual live event, a banker, my banker, who came and opened accounts for people. Here's the problem. Malaysia less and less open these days to Americans as account holders, same as a lot of countries are. Right? If you go to Singapore even, some of the banks will open for you as an American, but they're not going to offer you the full suite of investments and whatever else they normally offer. You can just park your cash there, which nothing wrong with that. Keep some liquidity, maybe place a term deposit, hold different currencies, but you're not going to be swinging for the fences on that. But in Malaysia, the way to get in is the MM2H residence permit. Now, you do have to live in Malaysia for part of the year to get that. If you don't want to live there, they've got a fee-based PVIP residence permit, but that's quite a fee to pay just to get access to banking. I'll give you a trick in a minute, by the way, you can use in Malaysia or Thailand or other countries in Asia to help you minimize the amount of money you have to put in the bank. But the MM2H, if you want to spend some time in tax-friendly, developed Malaysia, you can get that MM2H, and by default, you're going to put generally a low six-figure sum into the bank account. Therefore, the bank account facilitates the residence. This is why we talk about creating bespoke plans for our clients, because one thing can lead to another in a good way or a bad way. Things can work together or it can work against each other. And I'll tell you the trick first, and then I'll tell you the cheapest country to bank. The trick is, if you decide to get residence in a country like Malaysia or Thailand, not so much Indonesia, although it might work. The Philippines, less so, but might work. Malaysia and Thailand are the big ones. You get a residence permit. You open a bank account at the premium level, which if you're MM2H, for example, you're always going to be at the premium banking level. All the banks pretty much 250,000 ringgit, and you're a premium customer. Now, if you go and bank with one of the regional banks, they can potentially refer you to other banks, including into Singapore. And so you could potentially put in a relatively small amount of money in one of those other Asian countries, and then use that to get a referral to Singapore. And some of the banks may not even really require you to put much money into the Singaporean bank account at all. This is one of the ways that you can easily diversify your banking tunnels, where you get an account in one country, and then you can also say, okay, I'm in Malaysia, now I'll go to Thailand also. Can you refer me? You have banks like CAMB or Maybank, for example. These are Southeast Asia-focused banks. You've also got international banks like Standard Chartered, which is a bit more difficult. But that's the trick. And so you get a residence permit, then you get a bank account, you've got more options, and then they can potentially refer you up to the more premium jurisdictions from there. Here's the most affordable jurisdiction, though, and it's where I'm sitting right now in Cambodia. You can come and you can open a bank account if you know what you're doing as a non-resident with as little as $50 or $100. Now, you're not getting the whole full suite of multi-currency that you would get in, let's say, Singapore. You're going to generally get US dollars and Cambodian reals. The cool thing about that is the Cambodian real is essentially pegged in a narrow band to the US dollar, 4,000 and change to the dollar. It's been that way ever since I started coming here in the early 2010s. And so effectively, you can consider that somewhat similar to the Hong Kong dollar, as there's this great interchangeability between dollars and local currency. And yet, the delta on the interest rates you'll earn could be 1.5%, 2%. I saw somebody down the street offering, I think, 7.5% of your Cambodian reals. So if you got liquidity that you want to park for the next deal, or you just like holding cash, 7.5% on a dollar proxy isn't the worst deal. And you're getting geopolitical diversification where it's not in some lecturing European bank with lots of restrictions. Of course, they're doing their due diligence on their clients. There's still paperwork to fill out. This is the kind of place you'd have your banker on WhatsApp, and they try and find exceptions. Oh, you got to do a video call, and they try and find ways to make things work. Oh, you have to confirm something? Oh, you don't have access to your phone number? Okay, we're going to do a video call. Can you get on Google Meets and do it? Like, they just want to do the job properly, not make a lot of rules around how things work. And so I was talking to one of my banker friends here just this morning, and she said, yeah, you do need to have a Cambodian visa for us to be able to issue you an account. And so you can get an online visa. Maybe better to get a business visa, which you can still facilitate online. They get stamped at the airport. So if you haven't been here, you will need to make a visit. But you don't need to be a resident. A long-term business visa could be enough to do that. You can obtain that relatively easily. And then you don't really need much of a deposit. I mean, it could be $100. And that's why I'm calling Cambodia the Georgia of Asia for banking, because Georgia has always excelled at that. Now, Georgia offers premium banking options starting at like $20,000 generally, or starting at kind of putting in a decent salary. And Georgia's banking, ecosystem has really developed. They're issuing American Express cards now. They got all kinds of things going on. I think Cambodia, with nearly 60 different banks here, has a lot of opportunities. More banks than Georgia and most other countries. You're seeing Korean and Japanese banks. Big push by Malaysian banks, including an ex-Malaysian banker, CEO of a bank there, came and opened his own bank. You have one Singaporean bank, not one of the big ones, but a Singaporean financial institution came and opened up a bank. You've got local banks. Some of the most profitable are CLADA, for example, or ABA, which is part of the National Bank of Canada group. So you've got a lot of banks to choose from. A lot of them actually started as microfinance institutions and then kind of converted over to be these banks. And by the way, you're seeing a lot of banking towers, including Canadian Bank, one of the other big local ones. Over the years, since I've been coming here, the number of skyscrapers has been going crazy. I mean, just on the street, Wing Bank, big, beautiful skyscraper. You can see it from the Sky Bar at the Rosewood Hotel. Beautiful. The city is developing, the banking sector is developing. And so what a tunnel does is, hey, I can put $100 in that bank account to start, but I could scale it up to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. The sky's really the limit. I know one person who probably keeps about $1 million in cash here, and it's just much more laissez-faire. He's like, listen, I mean, these are international banks. Do you think a big Malaysian bank wants to ruin their reputation at home? Do you think Maybank, who's coming in here, wants the number one bank in Malaysia? Do you think they want people in Malaysia to hear that they're a Cambodian subsidiary who went bankrupt and they have a run on the bank there? I mean, they're going to be conservative enough. They're going to be able to move their money around to make sure that in Cambodia, their operation is probably going to work as well. Now, don't hold me responsible for any bank problems. Do your own research. But in my personal opinion, this is a good place to come and get access not only to that US dollar proxy with higher interest, if that matters to you. I'm a big believer these days in getting my money out of US dollars. And yet, if you're like me and you run a business and you've always thought in US dollar terms, Hong Kong dollars, Cambodian reals, Emirati dirhams, Saudi reals, these are all good proxies to hold to where you're not going to incur, have wild swings. Now, you probably should have bought some other currencies than the US dollar in the last year. You would have made a nice profit. But good place for that US dollar proxy, good place for higher interest rates, including on your US dollars, as well as interest rates are going to start going down around the world. You're going to see banks in Singapore, but they still do offer decent rates. You're going to see those rates going down. You're going to see rates in Georgia, for example. They used to offer great interest rates on US dollars. Ever since, the rate whackings of a couple of years ago, even with rates back up now, they still don't offer that high of interest. A place like Cambodia, Frontier, looking for clients, is going to be open. And so you've got enough of these out of 60, almost 60 banks, you've got enough to choose from where some are going to be very open to talking to you. Or you can do the trick and you can open an account through a residence program somewhere else in Asia, or potentially open a bank account at the premium level in Singapore and then get referred if that bank has a bank branch here in Cambodia. So two ways to go about it. But I think this is the kind of global south country, that it would be a good idea to at least have some tunnels in for your money because they are more flexible. This is what we help our clients do in countries all around the world. We put it all under one roof. We make sure that things work together for you so that what you're doing here doesn't disrupt what you're doing there. Go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. We work with successful entrepreneurs and wealthy families from all over the world to help you go where you're treated best.